This is Lubuntu 18.10, the first release of Lubuntu that uses the long-promised LXQt desktop instead of LXDE. This is an interim release. It'll be supported with bug fixes and security updates for 9 months. This is exactly the way it came, except that I've added Simple Screen Recorder. I like this menu. As I've said before, it's called the application menu, and it has a search feature. So if I search for SIM, I get Simple Screen Recorder. I already have that installed, so I'm going to close this now. Let me just go over the bottom panel here. You have the menu, as I said. You have a workspace selector with 4 available workspaces. By default, you have a launcher for files, a launcher for Firefox, and a launcher for Show Desktop. And then you have the taskbar here with the window buttons. And I might point out that this shows the window buttons for all desktops, even though you're not in that particular desktop. For instance, I have Simple Screen Recorder in desktop 4, but if I go to desktop 1, Simple Screen Recorder disappears, but I still see the window button for it. That's fine as long as you know that. Now, some of these things over on the right are not very clearly visible. This is the removable media. And I have an external hard drive with 6 partitions in it, so that's why you see all of that. This is hardly visible at all, and this is the mixer. It shows 0%. That's because I have my headphones plugged into the microphone. That's battery information. Now this is the Clipboard Manager, Clipper with a Q. There's nothing in the clipboard now. This is the Network Manager, and it shows my active wireless network. This is an indicator for Simple Screen Recorder. It's very hard to see, but this shows that Simple Screen Recorder is active. And this, of course, is the time, and if you click on that, you get the calendar. Now, this can be reconfigured. I can move this to the top. Just right-click. Click on Configure Panel. And under Position, top of desktop. I could also move it to either side. I can, of course, add a second panel, as I often do, but I'm not going to do that now. If I right-click on the desktop background and click on Desktop Preferences, it shows me the wallpaper image file, but not the wallpaper itself. It's going to be very hard to select wallpapers, even if there were more, with only the file name visible. You can find a picture either on the internet or in your own Pictures folder and use that as a background. If you want a solid color, just go to Wallpaper mode, and there's a drop-down menu. And go down to Fill with Background Color Only. And then go down here and click on Apply. And in this case, the background color is black, but I'm going to pick a different one. Let's try a green color for a change. OK. And Apply. Now you get a green background. Let's take a look at the available software. Under Accessories, you have Arc, which is an archiving tool. Featherpad, which is a text editor, Kcalc, which is a scientific calculator, PCman FM, Qt File Manager, Clipper with a Q, Qt Pass, which is a password manager, Vim, which is a command line text editor, Compton, which is a compositor. Now, if you click on Compton here, nothing happens. Take my word for it, nothing happens. However, later I'll click on Compton from the settings and something will happen. Now this is FCITX GIMP panel config tool. This is from Ubuntu Kylin. This facilitates text entry with Chinese characters. And this is Noble Note, which is a note application. Under Education, you have LibreOffice Math. Under Games, you have 2048Qt. Under Graphics, you have LXimage, LibreOffice Draw, Screenshot, and Scanlight. Under Internet, you have Blue Devil Send File, Blue Devil Wizard. Those are both Bluetooth applications, and I don't use Bluetooth. Firefox Web Browser, QTransmission BitTorrent Client, Quassel, IRC, which is an IRC client, and Troyita, which is an email client. I understand from the release notes there may be some problems with Troyita. So if I were going to use this, I would probably install Thunderbird. Under Office, you have the LibreOffice Meta package, and you have some of the applications. You have Calc, Draw, Impress, Math, the formula editor. You don't have LibreOffice Base. And again, you have Troyita and QPDF View, which is a PDF file viewer. Now, I haven't used this recently. The last time I used it, it did not open some PDF files, and I had to install another PDF viewer to look at those files. Whether that situation has been corrected, I don't know. It took me a while to find that out. Under Sound and Video, you have K3B, which is a CD, DVD burner. You have Pulse Audio Volume Control, Simple Screen Recorder, which I added, and the VLC Media Player, which is my favorite. It came this way, I didn't have to add it. Under System Tool, you have more Bluetooth applications. You have the Blue Devil Send File again. There's a lot of duplication here. You have Blue Devil Wizard again. You have Discover, which is the Qt-based software center. Again, you have FCITX input method. You have HTOP, which gives you a view of all the running processes. You have K3B again, the disk burner. You have Muon Package Manager. Instead of Synaptic, it's similar to Synaptic. QTerminal, which is one of the terminal emulators. And you have QTerminal Dropdown, which is the other terminal emulator. And you have a Startup Disk Creator, which allows you to create a startup disk. And you have QPS, which is a process manager. Under Preferences, you have LXQt settings. And there's a whole list of them here, but the easiest way of getting those is to go to the LXQt Configuration Center, and I'll show that later. It has the Alternatives Configurator. I wouldn't mess with that unless you knew what you're doing. It has a QCITX configuration, which configures the Chinese input method, iBus preferences, printers, and screensaver. Then you have About LXQt, which just tells you that it's version 0.13. And you have the logout and shutdown alternatives, hibernate, leave, logout, reboot, shutdown, suspend, and lock screen, lock the current session. Now let me go to the preferences for a minute. The LXQt settings in the LXQt configuration center. Here you have appearance, and it appears that you have to double click on this. You have the widget style, and you have an option between Breeze, Windows, I don't like that, and Fusion. I'm going to leave that on Breeze. You also have a way down here to set the Gtk themes. So let's go down to icon themes. The default is Papyrus Dark. There are these high contrast icons. Humanity Dark, login icons, Papyrus Adapta, something, Papyrus Adapta Nocto. Then you have Papyrus Dark, Papyrus Light, ePapyrus for elementary OS, GNOME default GNOME theme Oxygen, Ubuntu Mono Dark, Ubuntu Mono Light. So you have quite a few icon possibilities. I'm just going to leave those in the interest of time. Then you have the LXQt themes. Here, Lubuntu Arc is the default. So I'm going to go to Ambience first, then to Dark, and you have to wait a while for these things to appear. This seems to be picking up some color from my desktop. Frost, KDE Plasma, Light, Lubuntu Arc, and System. And since Lubuntu Arc was the default, I'm just going to leave that. Now, next you have fonts. You can change those. Right now, it uses anti-aliasing with RGB subpixel anti-aliasing and slight font hitting, which is what I would normally use. So I'll leave that. And here you have the cursor appearance, and I'm going to leave that. So with brightness, of course, again, you have to double click. You can change the screen brightness. I'm not going to do it. Under desktop, here again, you get some of the desktop preferences and the ability to select wallpapers, background color again. So I'm not going to go through that again. Desktop notifications. It lets you choose the position on the screen, and then under advanced settings, you can change the duration, you can change the size, etc. Under file associations, you can change the associations with the various applications. I'm certainly not going to go into that now. Under keyboard and mouse, you have ways of changing the mouse acceleration, etc. And you have keyboard layouts, but one thing you do not have is any way of changing your touchpad settings. And I have a touchpad, not a mouse, so this is totally useless for me. On looking through here, I haven't been able to find any way of configuring the touchpad, which means I can't enable edge scrolling and things like that. Under locale, I'm not going to change that. I'm still in the US. Monitor settings. And here's OpenBox settings. Sometimes these are separate from the LXQt settings. I think it was a good idea for them to include them here. And there again we can change various themes. Lubuntu Arc is default, and Arc Darker, ArtWiz Box, Beartube, Breeze OB, Clearlux 3.4. There are a lot of these. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm not saying Lubuntu Arc is my favorite, but I'm going to leave this for now. And under Appearance, you can change the way the window borders are treated when undecorated. You can animate, iconify, and restore. Actually, that is checked. Gives you the button order, the window icon, window label, iconify, that's minimize, maximize, and close. It doesn't include shade roll-up and omnipresent. Under fonts, again, you can change those. Under Windows, change the window focus. I only have one monitor. Under Moving and Resize, changes the drag threshold distance, the amount of resistance against screen edges. I unchecked Switch Desktops when moving a window past the edge of the screen. I just don't like that. There is, by the way, to my knowledge, no window snaps in LXQt. When I was using LXQt 0.12 with Seduction, which is a Debian-based distribution, they had window snaps, but that's because they also included the XFWM window manager, which supports window snaps. Of course, that adds something to the required resources. But if you use this and you want window snaps, that's one thing you might be able to do if you know how to change window managers. Now under Mouse, again, there's nothing about touchpads. Under Desktops, I have 4 desktops. Under Margins, it gives me the option of reserving margins in the desktop where windows will not go, but they're all set at 0, and that's where I want them. And also there's a way of adding a container for dock apps or dock applications, but it's not visible until a dock app is run, so I'm not going to do anything with that. Under Power Management, I did do something with that. Now I left Enable Battery Watcher available, and then when power is low, shut down, warning, 30 seconds, level is low at 5%. That's just to prevent doing damage to the system by shutting it down without the proper sequence. And then it shows the battery icon. Here's the battery icon. It's almost impossible to see. And these are the various symbols associated with the battery icon. Under Lid, enable Lid Watcher. On battery, do nothing. On AC, do nothing. I could just have disabled the Lid Watcher. And there's an option when using an external monitor, but I don't use one at the moment. Under Idle, enable Idleness Watcher. Now that is checked, but I might as well have unchecked it because I have when idle, then nothing. I don't want it to shut off automatically. You have a choice: lock screen, suspend, hibernate, shut down, turn off, or nothing, and I want nothing. Now it shows the idle time is 15 minutes, but since I'm not going to do anything, it doesn't matter what it is. So that's the power management, and that's one of the first things I went to so that the system would not constantly be shutting off. Under Session Settings, you have the OpenBox Window Manager, and that's the only option here, but you could add another window manager. Now, you can also enable the Compton Compositor. And if I click on that, we'll see what happens. Start. So that's basic settings. I'll get back to Compton later. Default applications, I don't want to change that. User directories, I don't want to change that. Auto start, it lists the things that are going to start automatically. If you know what you're doing, you might want to get rid of these to speed up loading, but I wouldn't want to mess with it now. Environment, advanced, and advanced means advanced, so I suggest not messing with that. Some settings will not take effect until the next login, so we'll see about that. Shortcut keys. I'm not really going to change any of those. I don't usually use shortcut keys. Window effects. Now this is the Compton compositor. Enable client-side shadows on Windows. Avoid drawing shadows on dock panel windows. Don't draw shadows on D&D windows. 0, the part of the shadows masked behind the window. Blur radius for shadows. Color of shadows. I'm not going to change anything there. Opacity. The opacity for menus is 80%. What if I reduce that down to 50% and then click on Apply? And then I open the menu. That doesn't seem to affect it at all. So I'm going to move that back up to 80%. It may be that I have to restart to do some of these. Default opacity for active windows, 1. Opacity for Windows title bars and borders, X-render, background, dim inactive windows. Do not let dimness adjust based on window opacity, blur background, transparent windows. All of these little gimmicks, but the one gimmick I really want is the window snaps, and that isn't available. Fade windows during opacity changes, etc. Other, rendering backend, X-render. I'm just going to leave those things the way they are. I don't expect to see too many window effects. Now, the alternatives configurator I would leave alone if I were you, unless you really know what you're doing. These are complicated things, and I wouldn't mess with them. Date and time. Doesn't seem to be any choice for the time, so I seem to be stuck in 24-hour time. Time zone. Your current time zone is America, Chicago. I'm going to leave that. I would like to be able to change that to a 12-hour clock. There may be a way of doing it, but it certainly is not available here. Let me just right-click on the time up here. Configure world clock. I'm going to configure world clock. Here, use 12-hour format. So that's how you change to 12-hour time, not in date and time. Under printers, I haven't installed any printers yet. I've never had a problem using either of my printers with any Ubuntu. Users and groups, I suppose it means. I don't want to change that now. That's enough for now. So that's the configuration center. As far as problems are concerned, in my coverage of plain Ubuntu with the GNOME desktop, I did cover some things that weren't working in version 18.04 and still aren't working in version 18.10. The difficulty of installing my scanner and the fact that PyRenamer is no longer in the repositories. And of course that would be true for all versions of Ubuntu. It's not specific to one particular version. I want to go to Discover, which is the Qt-based software manager, the highly graphical software manager. Here it is, and you click on Applications, and you get Applications. You can search for them here. So if I search for GIMP, press enter, and I get GIMP. If I click on this, I get a detailed description of GIMP and what's new. And this is version 2.10, by the way. I haven't installed this yet, and there should be a way of scrolling down. You have to click on the right edge to get the scroll bar. And this shows you the source, which is the repository, the Ubuntu Cosmic Universe repository. I'm not going to install that now, so I'm going to go back and go back to applications. And of course you have all of the other categories. And under settings, you have a list of the repositories, and there are no updates currently available. So that's Discover. It works just as well here as it does in the KDE Plasma desktop. Now, the other one is the Muon Package Manager, which is the equivalent of Synaptic in a way, but it's not Synaptic. So if I wanted to find GIMP here, I would just type GMP. And there is the same thing. Doesn't tell you much about it here, but if you click on it, it tells you below something about it. Doesn't even tell you the version number. That I don't particularly care for that. I do like the fact that the search bar is immediately available. I don't have to click on any little magnifying glasses or anything. So anyway, that's Muon. I understand from the release notes that there was a problem porting the driver manager from a Gtk to Qt, and so if you need drivers, you're going to have to use the command line method of getting them. Unfortunately, I don't need any drivers. I don't use any drivers. I have built-in Intel graphics. The system recognized my Realtek Wi-Fi adapter. So I can't really test any of these methods for you. But there is a command line method referred to in the release notes, and I think you can click on that item and it will take you to the instructions. And also you might be able to download the driver from the NVIDIA or AMD website. Aside from that, the release notes suggest that you test this thoroughly before using it for production, as there may be some bugs. The only reason I haven't used Lubuntu for production in the past, and I still wouldn't use it, is that I really need Windows snaps as a productivity tool. I frequently have 4 desktops open with 2 documents on each desktop. I like to be able to compare things side by side, and I don't want to have to constantly fiddle with resizing windows. I would use at least XFCE, also Mate, both of them, and all of the heavier weight desktops include Windows snaps. This is XRAM Tech. Thanks for watching.